Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Abedi, a U.S. immigration attorney with the law firm of Robert, Abedi and Associates in San Francisco. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, the Grenada CIP, an independent overview from industry insiders. First, we hope that you are safe and remaining healthy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for taking the time and being here today. We're privileged to have industry experts who all reside in Grenada and who are well positioned to share with you the ins and outs of this sought-after citizenship program and popular option for accessing the US E2 visa. Please allow me to introduce to you Richard Hallam, representing Tandem, an approved marketing agent. Richard will offer an overview of Grenada's program relative to other popular programs and mention a few key developments. Nisha McIntyre, marketing strategist and advisor for Grenada's program. Nisha will offer an overview of the benefits of Grenada's program. Sabrita Khan-Ramdhani, approved local agent for Grenada's program. Sabrita will offer a high-level overview of the application process, digital filing, and the newly introduced two-step process. And I will discuss E2, its process, timeframe, costs and benefits, and comparisons with EB5. We will be running a live Q&A at the end of this webinar, so we have enabled our Ask a Question feature. It is on the bottom of your screen in the auditorium. So if you have any questions, just pop them in there. And if you miss anything, please don't worry. We will be sending around on-demand recording when it's available. And members of our panels will be in touch to answer questions. Can I ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves before we start?
Certainly. Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Nisha. Good morning, Sabrita. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody that's joining us live. I am here, as you can see, on the beautiful island of Grenada. As Robert mentioned, I represent Tandem, which is an approved marketing agent of the Grenada Citizenship by Investment program. And my experience really goes back nearly 30 years in the hotel industry, working through the ranks. I then transgressed onto development and real estate. I moved to Grenada 15 years ago. My wife and children are now here with me. And I've been involved with the Grenada Citizenship by Investment program since its inception about 6-7 years ago. First as an advisor to the Office of Inward Investment, then as a marketing agent for some of the approved developments, and now as my own marketing agent representing the whole program. So I hopefully will be able to offer some insight into the developments that are available in Grenada, the pros and cons of each one. We'll all be able to talk about the Grenada program, what makes the Grenada program different from other jurisdictions in the Caribbean and also from other jurisdictions in Europe as well. So I look forward to chatting with you, Robert, and my colleagues and enlightening everybody as to what the benefits of the Grenada program and also of this beautiful island. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Nisha, please.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. As Robert said, my name is Nisha McIntyre. I'm a marketing strategist and advisor. I've been spending the last 4 years working within the investment immigration industry, firstly in Dominica, now in my homeland, Grenada. And I spend most of my time advising the developers on packaging, on strategy, and then also working with marketing agents and clients, coaching them on how to develop and submit successful applications. We're privileged in Grenada to live in this island. I mean, Grenada's citizenship program, as one of many in the world, to me, at a price point of $150,000, offers significant value for money. And we're pleased to be working to help individuals get the global access that this program can give them. And I look forward to speaking with the rest of the panelists today about the E2 visa, about visa-free access to China, about the allowances for larger families. Grenada's program is very different in many unique and interesting ways. And I think today we're going to show you just why this program is a better E2 opportunity as opposed to Turkey, and even a better opportunity in a general sense for a second citizenship.
Sabrita, please.
Good morning, everyone. From Grenada. My name is Sabrita Khan-Ramdhani, and I am the Managing Director of Orion Corporate Solutions, Inc., an approved local agent. I am also a lawyer with 23 years experience. It is indeed a pleasure to be hosted at the beautiful and picturesque Mount Cinnamon Resort, situated on the Grenada beach. Mount Cinnamon is one of Grenada's first approved projects, and I am happy to provide you with an insight into the Grenada Citizenship by Investment application process during these strange times experienced globally. I therefore trust that each and every one of you will continue to stay healthy and safe.
Thank you to our panelists. We have a video to start, so let's watch the video.
There is still a place where untouched beauty meets soothing experiences and a warm people. It is a place where cascading waterfalls meet quiet meandering rivers to join silky stretches of white sand beaches. A place where you are greeted with the friendly smiles of the local people, while the rich aroma from the abundance of tropical fruits, fresh herbs and spices fill your lungs. A place perfect for curious minds intrigued by 18th century plantations, a water-propelled rum distillery, historical forts, and petroglyphs that are still visible today. A place where you can go turtle watching, feed mana monkeys, and marvel at water-filled craters created from extinct volcanoes. This place also allows you to enjoy perfect year-round sailing conditions while diving the world's first underwater sculpture park. This charming place is neatly situated in the Southern Caribbean and is popularly referred to as the Spice Islands of the Caribbean. These islands are Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. So come visit us as we take you on a journey like never before. Come, experience the rhythms of spice.
I would like to ask some questions of the panelists. The first question is, what has Grenada done differently from other islands and jurisdictions to maintain a competitive edge? Richard and Nisha, if you would please.
Thank you, Robert. As I mentioned earlier, I've been involved with the Grenada program since its inception. And I think from day one, Grenada has not strived to have thousands of applications a year. It's certainly not gone ahead and approved tens, even hundreds of approved developments. So Grenada's program, I think, has tried to maintain a authenticity, a level of boutique-ness, if you like, in that we maybe process a few hundred applications a year. There are only really a dozen or so approved developments in Grenada right now. And I find that by condensing the amount of approved developments and by limiting just by way of application how many people apply through, Grenada's program is small, it's boutique, and that allows them to maintain an excellent level of due diligence and a very low level of application denial. The stewardship of the program, the three levels of due diligence that a client has to go through, and the limited amount of applications really set that apart from a lot of the programs in the Caribbean who accept thousands and thousands of applications. Mistakes are obviously made once you start getting into volume, and I think Grenada has done very, very well in trying to avoid that. There are obviously some very definite advantages of the Grenada program, and I think I'll allow Nisha to talk a little bit more about the visa-free access that we have, obviously the E2 relationship with the US, and also the siblings and the dependents, which you can include on one application. Nisha.
Yeah, like Richard said, what Grenada has done that has set it apart, especially recently, is that it's made the program more inclusive, particularly for large and multi-generational families. Grenada is now the first program internationally to allow grandparents and parents of any age of both the main applicant and the spouse to be included on a family application. In addition to that, Grenada has always also allowed for siblings that are unmarried or that are childless to be included on a family application. And has even gone further to say, if you have children who are dependents and they're under the age of 30, they no longer have to be enrolled in school, as you would find the case with most of the other programs. So they've really made allowances for a lot of the large families that we're seeing popping up, especially in the Middle Eastern regions, where we're now targeting more strongly. Now, additionally to that, and Richard touched on it, is the issue of due diligence and the fact that Grenada has spared nothing when vetting its applicants. And that's very important. And I know that sometimes due diligence may be seen as a deterrent, but in this case, I actually see it as a benefit. If you're going to be investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into a second citizenship, then you should be sure that that government is going to do everything to ensure that it protects the value of your citizenship going forward. And that's what due diligence does. It ensures that all of these applications are properly vetted so that Grenada as a sovereign state does not face any future backlash from any of its foreign allies. And so that's very important. And we continue to stress due diligence here in Grenada. And I think that more than anything is why this program will continue to improve and continue to add added value to investors going forward.
Just to cap that off, Robert, you know, some of the distinct advantages of Grenada as a citizenship is it has access to over 140 countries visa-free worldwide, which when you compare that with places like, you know, South Africa, which I believe has around 100, India, which I think has only 50 countries that it can access visa-free. That gives you a passport with a much higher degree of mobility. Coupled with that, the access to places like China, visa-free. I think there are only 6 countries in the world that have visa-free access to China. Brazil, United Kingdom, the Schengen zone. Obviously, as I'm sure you'll be able to touch on a little later, Grenada's unique relationship with the United States with regards to the E2 visa, which if you're approved, if you get approval from the US, gives you the ability to live in the United States, own a business with your family.
And not just own a business, may I say, and not just live in the US, but you actually have an opportunity to live in the US and not be exposed to global taxes. And as Robert, you can speak more about that because you've done EB-5 and you understand the differences between the EB-5 and the E2 visa as it relates to tax purposes. But Grenadians have this privilege. We can actually apply for an E2 visa and live in the US indefinitely even, as long as we continue to operate that business within which we have major ownership. So I think these are some key benefits as to how we've helped to differentiate the program from other international programs. And I think this is why investors can find value in having Grenada as a second citizenship.
Now into our second question. As Grenadians, why does this citizenship differ from any other neighboring islands? Richard, if you would start, please.
I've been a Grenada citizen for around 15 years now. Before the program became about, I was living here and I applied through the application process. I think it's a very personal question, and they say a picture tells 1,000 words. So if I just move out of screen here, Robert, I think for me that's my answer. You can't get better than that. It's a beautiful place. It's a safe place. I live here with my family, my 2 children. My house is unlocked. My car is unlocked. It really does speak for itself. So that would be my reason. Everything that you see behind me.
I can't concur enough with Richard. I may be biased because I'm a Grenadian, but I've lived in other places around the world. There's a comfort and ease to being able to get up in the morning and not have to be concerned about locking your doors, to live in a community where it's still very much community oriented, where your neighbor still looks out for you and can provide for you. These are qualities that have become rare in other destinations around the world. And that makes the quality of life here quite important and quite significant to Grenada. Added to that, we live in a country that is quite visionary. If you look at the trajectory that our government has taken in terms of moving us forward, Grenada was the first country in the OECS to pioneer and move into a blue economy. You know, we had a development plan that was developed since 2016. And this was before other countries were becoming aware of the impacts of climate and the need to be more sensitive to environment. So I take comfort in saying that we have a safe environment, a beautiful place, and then we're led by a government that actually is working for the people and moving this country forward. It's why I think we have had the second fastest growing economy for the last 3 or 4 years. So these are significant values, I believe, as to why our citizenship is important.
Sabrita, would you like to add anything?
Oh, I don't have very much to add, except that I agree fully with Nisha and Richard. Grenada is beautiful. It's a piece of paradise. It is one of the safest countries in the world. Grenadians, we are all hospitable. And I say we because I came to Grenada in 2003, fell in love with Grenada, and here I am 17 years later, a Grenadian citizen as well.
The next question is a little bit broader. And the question is, why do people need another citizenship?
I think there is maybe a misunderstanding in the broader population that somebody that wants a second citizenship needs it because they need to escape from their current citizenship or there's some criminal intent going on. And I can't say that that's further from the truth, having been in the industry for as long as I have and having met the people, personally myself, having filed over 70 applications and being on a personal relationship with a lot of these clients and understanding why it is that they're looking for their second citizenships. There are a number of reasons. There's about 5 main reasons that I've come across. The first one obviously is global mobility, as we touched on. The ability to travel to more places visa-free. I have a UK citizenship and I also have a Grenada citizenship. If I want to go to Moscow, I have to send my UK passport to the embassy to get a visa. It can take weeks. On my Grenadian passport, I can fly straight into Moscow, visa-free. Same with China, same with Brazil. Same with a whole other host of countries. I have a lot more access with a Grenadian citizenship to countries that I can't access even in my UK passport. So global mobility. Plan B is another reason. And when I say a plan B, having an option to be able to relocate, move and live somewhere should the need arise, whatever that need may be. I think future generations is another reason. People that want to provide a better future for their children. Because with a Grenada passport, obviously, once you as a main applicant, you have your dependents, your children, your children's children, and so on. It's generational. All become Grenada citizens. So it gives you the ability to give your children possibly a better chance than you had in life. There are obviously tax benefits of having second citizenship and second residency. And as we've already touched upon, the big advantage for Grenada is the segue into the E2 visa into the United States.
I think I concur with Richard on that. Most of the clients that I've dealt with have taken out a second citizenship, surprisingly, most of the times for their children. Many of them are concerned at the fact that their children may not have access to quality healthcare, quality education, and so they want to get them a citizenship that's better respected. A lot of them also face cross-border discrimination when they're trying to move from one country to another. They're stigmatized at airports. So to avoid that, a lot of them would invest in a citizenship. And then of course, we're dealing with a lot of businessmen, businesswomen who would like to take advantage of that last minute merger, that last minute business opportunity that is across border. When you are from a country where you have to get a visa, that limits your ability to make last minute decisions that can benefit your business. And so a lot of them would invest in a second citizenship for that. They don't like the fact that they have to divulge personal and private information about their accounts every single time they have to get a visa. So getting the second citizenship alleviates these problems and gives them a quick out so that they can actually live the lifestyle that they deserve and that they are desirous of living.
Now let's get to a specific question about the Grenada program. Why invest when I can donate?
Obviously, I think first, if I could just quickly explain, Grenada actually has 4 options. Section 10 is the donation through what is being called the National Transformational Fund, which allows you to donate money to the government, and then the government put it to use in building bridges, schools, roads, and infrastructure. There's then what's called the Section 11, which is the investment, and that allows you to invest in an approved development and obtain your citizenship through that investment. And those investments are in developments such as hotels to aid the hospitality sector, which obviously helps Grenada with its tourism product, gives us more room nights, more tourists are able to visit, and that helps the economy overall. Within that investment category, there are 3 levels of investment. The minimum investment of 220,000. There is also a secondary investment amount of 350,000. And then there is option C, which is a significant investment, which allows somebody to invest upwards of $1.5 million into a project of their own. So those are the categories that any applicant can invest into Grenada. Why would you do donation as opposed to investment? If you're a single applicant, the donation route is much more affordable. It's $150,000 as a single applicant. As a family application to more than one person, it's $200,000 on the donation route and $270,000 on the investment route. So there is somewhat of a difference between the two. It is not any quicker to do the donation than it is to do the investment. There are no real benefits to doing the donation as opposed to doing the investment. It really depends on your comfort level with your risk and your reward. Some of the investments do offer opportunity of receiving annual income, annual dividends. Probably the most significant difference really is if you are looking to apply to E2 and you are wishing or you are desirous of living and working in the United States. The donation doesn't necessarily give you the nexus, the connectivity to the island that is required for an E2 visa. So when you have an investment in the country, when you own shares, when you own a piece of real estate, you have a nexus, you have a tie to the country. And that greatly assists you if you're looking to move forward onto an E2. I don't know, Robert, if you just want to expand on that a little bit because that's more your area of expertise.
I'll be more than happy to talk a little bit about E2. To qualify for E2, an individual has to be a citizen of a country that is an E2 treaty country. Currently, there are about 80 countries that are treaty countries. But when we look at Grenada, which is a treaty country, with the citizenship in Grenada, individuals can obtain the United States E2 visa. The benefits from Grenada are better than other countries. And I think we can touch about that a little bit more. And specifically, we'll be talking about the time frame that from Grenada, the E2 visa is valid for 5 years. It can be renewed indefinitely. So there are a lot of positives with the Grenadian citizenship going into the E2 program. I would like to ask a question about the application process for Grenada citizenship. How easy is the application process?
Pretty much straightforward. The most difficult part is determining which option are you going to choose. Are you going to do NTF or are you going to do real estate, as Richard just spoke about? And then, of course, determine like your documents. I believe this is where most people would get the biggest headache. But once an individual has collected their documents, the onus typically falls on their marketing agent or their local agent to help prepare the documents efficiently to make sure that they are notarized effectively. So it's not a stress or a strain for most investors. Once they've submitted their documents, they can go ahead and live life as usual. The most that is asked of them at that point in time is to just be patient. To be patient with the process as their applications now go through, the process from their local agent to the unit to due diligence to them getting their decision. So it's very straightforward. It's very simple. Like I said before, to me, the biggest stress for any applicant is just putting their documents together and then being patient.
The process is indeed a very simple and straightforward process. The most difficult is choosing whether the applicant wants to invest in the NTF or into an approved project. The second difficult decision is choosing a local agent and an approved marketing agent to assist you on the way forward. You have 6 prescribed forms which needs to be completed. and you're expected to make full disclosure in completing those forms, answering all the questions. Having done that, then you are to compile the list of documents. You will be provided with a checklist, which tells you what documentation you need to obtain. After you have completed your forms, obtained your documents, and your file has been submitted, then you just simply wait for a period of approximately 90 business days and be patient.
The entire process usually takes about 4 months, 5 months. And during the entire time, once the client has submitted their documents, they're never required to come to Grenada during the application process. They're not required to know English and not required to do any interviews. The entire process can happen from wherever they are. And that's the beauty about the citizenship program here. They're not required to ever come here if they don't ever desire to. The agents who are working on their behalf will get the job done for them, and they can continue living life as they so desire.
I keep hearing the birds in the background, and to me, it shows the nature and beauty of Grenada. So it's quite an enjoyment to have the birds chirping in the background. The next question is for Sabrita and Richard. What is your track record in getting approvals, and why should an investor be using marketing and a local agent?
Thank you for that question, Robert. I would not want to speak about a track record. What I would want to say is that we as local agents and marketing agents, we have had approvals, more approvals than denials. I have processed approximately 50 applications since I have been a local agent, and within that time, I have had approximately 2 to 3 denials. In relation to the second part of your question, why should an investor use both a marketing and a local agent? This is because your marketing agent and local agent will assist you throughout the process, and they are the persons who will guide you whether you want to invest in an NTF or into an approved project. They will assist you in completing your forms and compiling your documents. Throughout the entire process, you will rely on your marketing agent and your local agent. This is also mandated by legislation. The Citizenship by Investment Act of 2013 actually mandates that both a marketing agent and a local agent is required for the submission of applications by applicants to the unit. Should an application be submitted or attempted to be submitted without the use of both a marketing and a local agent, that application will not be accepted by the unit. Yes, I must add that in relation to the 3 applications which were denied by the unit, I must say that those denials came about as a result of due diligence findings.
I have to agree with you. I don't think it's a case of a track record. I think both local agents and marketing agents work to their clients' best interests. I think we both, as you know, work very diligently in ensuring that any application that we submit is 100% accurate as to the law and as to the act, to avoid any kickbacks from the due diligence department. As I've previously alluded to, I think I've processed around 75 applications. I've had 2 denials, and both of those denials, I am confident that the client was aware that there was something possibly in their history that might be found out. And that's basically what it's down to. If you as a client, know if there's something that you've done in the past that may raise a flag, be it an orange flag or a red flag, if you like. And it's always best to disclose this out front, whatever it is. And we as local and marketing agents will be able to disseminate exactly if that will affect your chances of application or not. And if it does, we're going to tell you, and we're going to tell you it's probably not worth your while. And then it will be your decision as a client whether you want to move forward and risk possibly losing some of the application money. So it really is down to the clients. 99% of any denials that I think the entire program has had, the client will have known in advance if there was something that possibly would cause them to be denied. So I think it's a case of being transparent, being open, being honest, and using your local agent and your marketing agent to the best of their abilities and to their full capacities.
Sabrita, I think this is a good lead for you as we're talking about due diligence. What is the due diligence conducted, and what is the Grenada three-step program?
Yes, thank you, Robert. The Grenada three-step due diligence process, it is considered a rigorous due diligence process for most people because you have three tiers. The first step being at the level of the bank where the funds are sent by the applicant to the escrow account of the local agent. The bank then conducts due diligence to ascertain that the source of funds is legitimate. Once this is completed, the funds are cleared and credited to the escrow account for payment to the CBI unit, Government of Grenada, and if the applicant is investing into an approved project, as the case may be. If there is no clearance by the bank, the funds will be returned to the sender. The second and the third step comes in when the applicant's complete package is then submitted to the Citizenship by Investment unit, where further enhanced due diligence is conducted by engaging both a local due diligence service provider and international due diligence providers in the countries where the applicant has resided for 1 year or more over the past 10 years. This is what is termed the three-tier process of due diligence in Grenada. And as Nisha alluded to earlier, I must agree with her, it actually enhances our program in Grenada, it maintains the integrity of the program, and it helps to secure you, the investors, your investment into Grenada. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrita. Very detailed and clear explanation. Richard, what kind of return should I expect from my investment? I think that's a pretty common question that comes around.
Yeah, it's kind of my favorite question. I do a lot of seminars and conferences, and it's one thing that I like to hit upon. I think the first thing to really explain is that CBI is a bit of misnomer. It's not IBC, it's not investment by citizenship, it's citizenship by investment. So your return is your citizenship. It's the passports for you and your family, which you can pass down generationally. That should be your main return, and that should be your main focus. If your focus is how much money am I going to make, then citizenship really isn't the right avenue for you. You need to go and invest in stocks and shares or real estate. The citizenship program in all of the countries, specifically in the Caribbean, was created to help stimulate the economies of these countries, especially in the down times, when it's low season for the tourism industry, even during tropical storms that we have, helping to rebuild. So the idea is to stimulate the country, whether it's through donation through the government funds, or whether it's through investing in building more hotel rooms, such as the one that we're in right now. So I think the first thing the client has to get their head around is, if they're going to do the investment, that this isn't going to be a get-rich-quick scheme. Their investment is the passports, and those passports have a value, and that value, I would say, is the cost of the donation. So if you're prepared to donate, in the case of in the example of Grenada, a family of four, $200,000 to the NTF, then you should be prepared to accept that your passport costs $200,000. So if you then decide you want to go the investment route, you're going to be paying an additional $70,000 to $100,000. If you believe through investing in that property, you're going to get back at least that, then I think you've got a sound investment. There are investments that do give some levels of guarantee on annual return based on the profitability of the hotel. So the hotel or the business would need to be operational first, and then there would need to be an operating profit. And then you as an investor or a shareholder would be able to get some level of return based on that. But first of all, A, the hotel has to be operational, and B, they have to make a profit for you to see anything. So you can get some level of return, but the returns that you're going to get aren't going to be amazing returns. It's going to be something in line with what the bank might pay you, between 2 and 4, maybe even 5% in some circumstances. The real advantage of the investment route, I should say, is the ability after a 5-year holding period to be able to sell your investment to another CBI investor. And that way you can recuperate the majority, if not all, of your original investment. So that's really how you would look to get the return. You would get hopefully the return of the initial sum that you paid, minus obviously the costs and fees. But to think of the CBI program in Grenada, I can't really speak for the other countries, but specifically in Grenada, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You have to want to do this because you need second citizenship for your family, based on the reasons that we alluded to earlier. And so, you know, I really do try to put that across to people. And my first question to any client calling me is, why? Why are you looking for citizenship in Grenada? And then we take the conversation from there.
Great, thank you. Sabrita, here's a question that kind of follows through what you were discussing before. What are the most common reasons for applications being denied?
Thank you, Robert. Very interesting question and an important one. There are a number of reasons why an application would be denied by the CBI unit, some of which include, but are not limited to: 1, failure to disclose information; 2, due diligence discovers an association or link to a criminal entity or criminal activity by the applicant or a family member; 3, due diligence uncovers a criminal record which was not disclosed by the applicant in completing the forms, as mentioned earlier; 4, source of funds found to be from an illegal source, after all. These are some of the reasons, but as I said, it's not limited. It depends on what the CBI unit and due diligence determines. Generally, I must say that, and I think Richard actually alluded or spoke about it a bit earlier, that in most cases where there's a denial, the applicant 99% of the time knows the reason for the denial. So it's not something that is uncertain and they did not know before.
I think the question you should ask yourself is, if you're asking if you're asking the reasons for denial, you should ask yourself the question, should I really be applying? If you're honest and open, then there should be no problem. That's the simplest thing to say, really.
I'm going to go to the next question, and that's a question for Nisha and myself. And I would like Nisha to start off, and then I'll do the rest of it. How do you convert an E2 visa to a US green card? I know you and I had conversations about that. Nisha,
we have had conversations about that, Robert. And it's a question that comes up quite a lot. To convert an E2 to an EB5 investment, I think individuals, first of all, need to be sure that that is what their end goal is when they're going into an E2 investment. If that is the case, then there's certain things that they have to make sure they do. So for instance, if you know that your goal is to invest in EB5 in the future, then you'd select a targeted area if your objective is to invest $900,000 as opposed to over $1 million into your EB5 eventually. In that area, you have to make sure that whatever business you establish, that you hire 10 people and that your income from that business is also subject to taxes. I think those are the minimum requirements to ensure that whatever investment you put into that E2 business, you can then supplement that with whatever the balance is to meet the minimum threshold for EB5. And then that gives you an avenue to convert from an E2 visa to an EB5 going forward. Robert, I think you can add more on that.
I would think that one thing that we need to consider when we're thinking about going from an E2 visa to the US green card through EB5, we have to let the business, the E2 business in the US mature to the point where some of the funds or most of the funds for the EB5 investment can be available. So the investment right now is into two categories. It's either $900,000 or $1,800,000 based on the TEA, which is where the regional center project is located at. Economically deprived areas fall in the lower amount of $900,000. And one of the things that we do once we have our clients under E2, we are in communication with them literally on an ongoing basis to ensure that their business is doing well so that they can take the next step to the US green card. So it's a very good venue to go from E2 to EB5 green card, and it is very popular. The next question, Nisha, I keep coming back at you. Why do international students choose St. George's University? What are the benefits of a Grenadian citizenship with the university?
Okay. Grenada, as some people may know, is home to St. George's University. And the reason why I think a lot of international students choose this university is because it gives them not just quality in academics, but it also gives them an international exchange. So you get cultural and academic education at St. George's University. Right now, there's a population represented by over 140 countries at St. George's University. And if you've been following St. George's University, one of its strongholds is the fact that it has a very well-renowned medical school. Students who come to St. George's University and study medicine actually go on to complete their education in the US, to go on rotations in the US, and most of them end up practicing medicine in the US. As a matter of fact, St. George's University has placed the most doctors into first-year residences than any other university worldwide for the last 10 years. So that in itself proves to you the strength of a degree from St. George's University. And then let's face it, Robert, you get an opportunity to study on a beach in this beautiful island. I mean, the campus has to be one of the most beautiful campuses in the world. It's set on a peninsula. It's located next to some of Grenada's most beautiful beaches. And it's very often you see the students laying on the beach reading and studying. It's pretty impressive to be going through your undergrad or graduate degrees with the birds and the bees and the sea and the waves crashing in your background. So I think it gives students a unique opportunity to meet and learn people from different cultures, different countries. It gives them that international exposure, oddly enough, in a Caribbean island that may be far away from home. A very important aspect of Grenada's relationship with St. George's University is that by virtue of being a Grenadian, you actually qualify to get 90% off of your undergraduate tuition. So that in itself is another significant feat. As long as you are a Grenadian and you make an application to do your undergrad, and this includes pre-med degrees, you qualify for that subsidized tuition. So more than anything, you see a lot of individuals taking advantage of this when they apply for Grenadian citizenship so that their children can have access to quality education at a reduced rate.
Excellent, thank you. How are applications being submitted to the Citizenship by Investment Committee for processing during this period with the coronavirus?
Very good question, Robert. I must say that Grenada Citizenship by Investment Unit has taken the initiative and implemented an online platform to facilitate the submission of applications to the unit via soft copies. As a result, despite the pandemic, the submission of applications to the unit has neither halted nor stopped. And I must say at this stage that it is important to note there are two ways by which an application can be submitted to the unit. One, by your full package, and the two-step process, which you would have mentioned in your introduction. The two-step process involves submission of due diligence documents immediately to the unit, and within 10 days of submitting your due diligence documents, the balance of the documentation which is required for submission of a complete package must be submitted to the unit. We must note that failure to submit the entire package within the 10 days following the submission of the due diligence documents to the unit, that there are consequences for not submitting the rest of the documents, such as forfeiture of the fees paid and the possibility of your application being returned and not processed. I hope that answers the question, Robert.
Thank you. Very well done. I'm going to ask myself a question about the E2 treaty visa for the United States. The E2 treaty applies to Grenada. Grenada is an E2 treaty country. And the benefit of Grenada as an E2 country is that it gets a longer period of time for the E2 visa. For Grenada, that time frame is 5 years, while we see for some other countries like Turkey, Montenegro, and others, that duration is less. Now, what does the E2 entail? It entails a minimum investment of $150,000 minimum, and that is not by statute. And you have to invest that $150,000 in a business in the United States. And you can own 50% to 100% of that business. What is the business that you invest in? It can be a new business, it can be an existing business, or it can be a franchise. You have options, and it all depends on your preference. It is very important that the investment remains in the control of the investor, okay? And the processing time is also much faster for the E2 compared to the EB5. While we see right now EB5 has a processing time of 5 years, the E2 consulate processing can be done within 2 months. Now, the processing is either for Grenada done in Barbados or at a consulate where the investor resides and is a citizen of. The E2 can get renewed every 5 years as long as the business is continuing, it's sustainable, and supports the family. Talking about the family, E2 applies to the investor, their spouse, and all of their children under 21. So the children can come and attend public schools, charter schools, private schools. It's very important with an E2 for you as an investor to be able to manage the business. For E2, managing the business does not mean a day-to-day management operation. You actually can hire a manager and remotely oversee the manager. Another positive thing with the E2 is that you don't need to be in the United States all year long, as opposed with EB5 that requires you to at least to be in the United States 6 months a year to be able to continue with your green card. The E2 visa has no such requirement. You can be in the United States for a shorter period of time, and if you're in the United States for 120 days per year, there is no global taxation. So the taxation that the United States will be looking at is from the business creation and the income that that business creates in the US. Another important thing is that the E2 doesn't require a minimum job creation. Now, compared to the EB5, where it has to create 10 full-time employees, the E2 can be 1, 2, or 3 employees who are involved in the business. So it's 1, 2, or 3 job creation. Another aspect of the E2 is that your spouse can work legally with legal authorization in the United States without having a sponsor like EB3 or the other categories that require sponsors. Another important thing with E2 is that it can be converted into an EB5 depending on the maturity of the E2 business. So to meet the requirements of EB5, currently with an investment of $900,000 in the TA areas or $1,800,000 in non-TA areas, if that business grows and matures, it can be a stepping stone to the EB5 green card process. One of the important components of the E2 program is the business plan that is sent to the consulate with other documentation to support that application. The business plan is something that we work diligently and carefully with our clients to ensure that it meets the requirements for E2. We have been doing this E2 mostly for the last 14 years, and we have done it in the Middle East, North Africa, South Africa, and parts of South America. We have been pleased with the results that we have given, and we believe that the E2 is a solid program for people to be able to do business in the United States, set up their business in the United States, and bring their family to the United States. So as everybody knows, currently we do have an immigration ban into the United States, and E2 and EB5 are exempt and do not apply to that limitation of coming into the United States. That shows that this administration considers E2 to be an important component of immigration and job creation in the United States. This has been a pivotal moment for E2. I would like to thank the panelists for your industry expert advice. Now our viewers are more informed, and we start answering the questions from the audience that come live.
See which questions we can now answer live coming in online. I have a question here. Hi Richard, do you deal with South Africa? If the question is, are South Africans allowed to apply for a Grenada passport? The easy answer to that question is yes. So let's keep on moving forward. There are a number of questions coming in with relation to Iranian families. Can they apply if they have lived more than 5 years outside of Iran and also resident of another country? And a similar question, the Iran E2 visa has been revoked by the US. Would the authorities not know this as an attempt of a backdoor entrance into the US? I'm going to quickly refer to Sabrita, who will be able to better answer those questions as to the availability of Iranian citizens applying.
Thank you, Richard, for that question. Quickly, in relation to Grenada, we are at this time unable to accept applications coming from Iranian citizens because that is one of the countries on our sanction list. We have 2 countries, that would be North Korea and Iran.
Thank you, thank you. Let's see what else now. Here's an interesting question, and again, it will be back to you, Sabrita. What documents do I have to show for adopted children?
Any legal documents you may have, which has been issued by a court of law. So if there's an order, if you've applied legally to the courts for that order of an adoption, that is what you need to provide.
Thank you. Keeping these questions and answers nice and swift. Hopefully we can get through a number more of them. Nisha, my son has applied for medical science at the University of West Indies. If we get the Grenadian citizenship, is it free education at the University of West Indies?
No, unfortunately, it's not free education at the University of the West Indies. The governments of the Caribbean do have an arrangement with UE, but he will not be getting free education. There may be opportunities for him to get subsidized education, but definitely not free education at UE.
I'm liking these short answers. If you sell your investment, can you retain your passport, Nisha?
Yes, you definitely can. The good thing about Grenada's citizenship is that it's lifetime citizenship. So even if you choose to sell your investment after the 5-year stipulation, you're allowed to keep your citizenship for life.
Thank you. A couple of questions here. Can we make an investment and get citizenship? Can we purchase a house or business to get citizenship? And along a similar line, I have heard I can buy property and get citizenship. I think I can answer both of those questions, and I think we referred to those answers earlier on in our discussions. There are 2 routes to citizenship: the donation route, starting at 150,000, and also the investment route, where you are investing in a government-approved project most of the government-approved projects in Grenada specifically are hotel developments, hospitality developments. So you would be investing in real estate that is part of a hotel. You would usually be expected to allow the hotel to use your real estate investment, use the property that you invest as part of the hotel, so that then you can look to earn some level of returns once the hotel is operating and turning a profit. And just to continue on that answer, as another couple of questions come in, maybe Sabrita, you can talk a little bit about the process of the CBI committee in approving developments, and what does a developer have to do to get his development approved to be able to market CBI?
The developer or an intended developer will need to provide a business proposal and to the CBI committee to show that what is the intention, what is the proposed development, how many persons will likely be employed, Grenadian persons that is. And there are a number of other things. Due diligence checks have to be done and completed on the developer and or company. Those generally are the things that are needed.
Thank you. Good question here. Question about the Grenada program. Maybe Sabrita and Nisha, if you start, Sabrita. Does the applicant need to provide a CV and medical report if clients can't go to the hospital for the moment, obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic? How do clients get around a medical report and maybe a police report during the COVID crisis?
Unfortunately, they would not be able to submit an application without their medical report. Form 4 specifically says that we need a medical, there are a list of questions which needs to be answered by a medical practitioner, and they need to obtain their medical report. It is a requirement. In relation, I think you mentioned a CV.
Yeah.
That is not necessary any longer. What is needed and required is your highest level of education attained.
Thank you. But I also think recently I remember seeing a memo coming out about the CBI committee would extend what's the word I'm looking for? The validity of a police report and a medical certificate. Is that correct, Nisha?
Yeah, what I can say to add to what Sabrita mentioned before is that they are now allowing, first of all, individuals to submit an application without the medical report. However, the medical report must be submitted at some point in time for you to get your approval. So they will accept the application and start processing, but you must submit that report. What they said in the memo, additionally, is that they will extend the validity term of that report. So before, medical reports need to be valid for 3 months. So now they will extend that time by another 3 months. That's what the memo would have indicated.
Thank you. Lots of questions coming in now. I'm looking for an E2 question for you, Robert. Sorry, you're so quiet there. Let's see. Can Grenada citizenship be inherited by the children, and what are the fees? Sabrita, that's probably best for you.
Inherited by children, yes, it can be, because as we said earlier, the citizenship is a lifetime. It passes down to your descendants and generations. Fees, that is dependent on the Citizenship Act. So depending on where the person comes from, generally that would be approximately $2,500 or 3,000 EC dollars.
Thank you. Nice question here, actually, Nisha. This is an interesting one. We haven't really spoken about the infrastructure in Grenada, e.g. road, rail, transportation, in general terms, Telecoms Utilities Act, as compared to a developed country.
Okay. What I would say is that we don't have railway in Grenada. Our infrastructure is pretty much similar to that of other developed countries and islands. We don't have large freeways in Grenada when we're talking about road infrastructure. But we do have a pretty well-connected road network in Grenada. As you can see, all of us are coming to you from Grenada using the broadband that's available here. That our country has supported ICT development for years, and so the broadband infrastructure telecom infrastructure in Grenada is very well developed as well. I think the only thing that we would say, as I mentioned before, is that we don't have railway infrastructure in Grenada. It's a small island, so what, 124 square miles. So unfortunately, we don't have railway, but we don't have a need for railway in Grenada.
I've lived in a number of Caribbean islands, and I can safely say that having been in Grenada for 15 years now, I think I can count on one hand the amount of power cuts we've had. I can't think of a time where I haven't been able to access clean, fresh water. I mean, so a lot of the misnomers about Grenada being an underdeveloped country is not true. It's very much a developed country. It's just a very small country. But everything that we have here works fine, and you're able to live and exist here just as you would everywhere else. Okay, excuse me a second while I scroll down some of these questions. A tourist visa was refused. Will a Grenada application be approved? Sabrita.
Sorry, tourist visa?
I'm assuming, it doesn't go into much more detail, but it's basically if you've had a visa refused somewhere else, can you then apply for a Grenada citizenship?
You can, must be full disclosure. And if it was to one of the Schengen countries, you most definitely have to ensure that you reapply and obtain that visa before. If it was to the US and it was probably one occasion, there's no difficulty in applying.
I would just like to add to that, that we would disclose that in the E2 application as well.
There you go, Robert, we got you in.
Finally.
Good question here. Who vets the agents? Seems like a lot of duplication to have a marketing agent plus a local agent. Why? And what security is there for the applicant in terms of data protection? I think, Sabrita, you touched on this earlier with a question, and then maybe Nisha, you can touch on the second part with regards to the data protection.
Yes, Richard, that question is answered by our Grenada Citizenship Act of 2013. It actually mandates that we must have both a marketing agent and a local agent. So there is no duplication. It may seem that way to applicants, but it is mandated by our legislation.
Nisha, do you want to just touch on the difference between a marketing agent and a local agent and the two different roles they play?
Well, a marketing agent essentially helps a client determine what channel they would choose for their citizenship. They will help them understand the differences between NTF, between approved real estate, between a significant investment, and actually help them in the first instance to build their file. The marketing agent is the one that most likely will present them with the documents that they would have obtained from the local agent. The local agent is a point of contact directly with the Citizenship by Investment Unit. They are the ones that are going to be working with the bank, vetting the application to make sure that it completely meets the regulations that have been put forward by the Act and by the unit, and then working with the bank to ensure that the client's funds can be transferred securely to Grenada, and making sure that the payments are into the unit, and just following that application once it's been submitted to the unit and responding to the unit should there be any additional requirements that are made by the unit.
Thank you. The question, I think I asked the question earlier with regards to the visa denial, it was from Iran to the US. So I think, as you both mentioned, that would need to be disclosed, and the reason for the denial would need to be disclosed. And I guess it would be an orange flag on an application to have a visa denial.
I think,
sorry, go ahead, Robert.
No, go ahead. I was going to say that I think just one denial is okay, but if you have 6 denials in a year, then it's a little bit problematic.
Question, what impact does securing a Grenada citizenship have on immigration to the US? Maybe Robert, that's one you can touch on.
Sure. So Grenadian citizenship, Grenada is a nation treaty for the E2. So one of the guarantees of a nation treaty citizen is to be able to apply for the E2, to be able to come and set up business and live in the US and have their kids go to school in the US. It's a very good segue into E2, and it's probably the best venue right now because of the 5-year time period with the validity of the E2 visa to be renewed 5 years later.
Thank you. Again, just scrolling down, I want to make sure we get as many varied questions in as we can. What is the tax obligation of CBI investors who obtain Grenadian citizenship but do not reside in Grenada? Sabrita, that's probably one for your legal side.
Thank you, Richard. Sorry. Tax question, a very good question. If you do not work in Grenada, you do not earn in Grenada, you are not required to pay taxes. Likewise, if your global taxes, and if you were resident in Grenada, you would not be required to pay taxes on your global wealth.
Thank you. Nisha, can an unmarried child over the age of 30 be included in the application?
No. Unfortunately, the Act makes specific mentions to things like that. Children have to be under the age of 30 and have to be unmarried without children themselves.
Another question, Sabrita, do you need to do biometrics for a passport, and how is this accomplished?
No, we do not require biometrics for the passports in Grenada. Basically, once your application is approved, there is a form which is sent to the applicants, which they will complete and return to Grenada, and the passport is then applied for.
Nisha, back to the universities. Are there any other universities that give free education?
Well, Grenada has St. George's University, and I'm not sure if they heard before, but St. George's University doesn't necessarily give Grenadians free education, but as a Grenadian, you do qualify to get 90% off your undergraduate tuition. And it may be wise to note right now that St. George's University is one of the most well-respected universities for its medical school. So if your child wants to study pre-med, or get their pre-med degree at St. George's University, they can actually do that by getting 90% off their tuition for their pre-med degree.
A couple more questions now, and we're probably going to have to start wrapping up. Nisha, this is one for you, obviously, because of your experience and time in Dominica. Please explain why the Grenadian NTF entry level is 150,000 when St. Lucia Antigua is 100,000. And why are they currently accepting other nationalities like Iran?
To be fair, although we're all Caribbean islands, we do have different jurisdictions and different laws that govern our respective programs. I can tell you from a matter of value for money, right now Grenada's program is the only program that can give you the E2 access. So that in itself is an added value that the other programs like Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, Antigua, they cannot give you. That right away gives us a reason and a rationale for pricing a bit higher than the other programs. But again, it's all dependent on what each jurisdiction sees fit as being the best price for the value that they offer. So you will find some differentiation. Although we are Caribbean islands, we do have differences in terms of our programs and in terms of what our citizenship can allow our citizens to experience internationally.
Thank you. Robert, question for you here. What are the vehicles to E2? What am I investing in the United States to get my E2 visa?
Very good question. So the investment can be into a business that the person owns straight out. It could be a new business entity. It could be an existing business entity. It could be a franchise. And the ownership is anywhere from 50% to 100%.
Oh, that's simple. Thank you.
Direct to the point.
I think we're doing really well on these questions because your answers have been very succinct. I thank the panel for doing that. It's allowed us to get through a lot. I think we've got about time for one more, and it's another good question. What about the international banks in Grenada? Can they open a bank account without visiting the island? And how can one get a tax ID in Grenada? Sabrita, maybe you want to start with that?
In terms of a tax ID, that is quite simple. I'll start with that first. That is simple. Once you are approved as a Grenadian citizen, registration for tax ID can be prepared and completed and obtained within a short period of time. In relation to banks and opening accounts, that is a bit more difficult. You're required to be in Grenada on some occasions, and sometimes you can get that done otherwise. Richard, I believe you may be able to assist a bit more in terms of the banking aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have assisted clients in opening business accounts in Grenada and personal accounts in Grenada. It is obviously if the client is not in Grenada, there is a lot more paperwork that needs to be done with regards to, you know, identifying the client and source of funds and the various due diligence. I would always recommend a client comes to Grenada to do things like that. It's always more beneficial, and I think in terms of having your Grenadian citizenship, you need to visit the island and understand a little bit more about it, especially if you have a plan to move forward onto an E2 visa. I would certainly recommend having a greater in-depth knowledge of the island by visiting it. So there are, back to the question, you can open a bank account without visiting, and it is possible to get a tax ID. Some of the investments and the developments in Grenada allow you to apply for a tax ID because you are getting an income, because you have an income earning property. You can then apply for a tax ID. You will not be eligible to pay tax up to the first threshold, so you might not be liable for any taxes, but you'll be able to file for a tax ID. I think, I think we've answered a lot of questions, actually. There's a few more coming in. Any questions that we haven't managed to answer online now, we will certainly get back to you via email. If you logged on to the webinar, you will be getting an email back from us, either answering your questions or giving you more information on how to apply for Grenadian citizenship. I would like to thank Robert on the West Coast and my two colleagues, Sabrita and Nisha, here on the beautiful island of Grenada. I'd like to thank Mount Cinnamon Hotel for hosting us here, especially during our lockdown. And I would like to invite everybody out there to the next session of webinars, which is going to be a trilogy. So we're going to have 3 separate webinars, and we're going to be speaking to the developers of 3 projects in Grenada. They're all Grenadian developers. They're all Grenadian developments. They're much more boutique developments. So we'll be actually having one-on-one questions with local agents and developers on their development, and I encourage you all to look out for those emails coming out and sign up, and then you'll be able to learn and drill down much more into what the developments here offer, why these developers decided to do them, and which developments might be more suitable to you. So from me in Grenada and from Robert on the West Coast, my fellow panelists, thank you very much for watching. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope we get to see you here soon. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.